be your next BAS president for the 2016-2017 year. I'm currently in my third year and concentrating in HR. During my time at SFU, I've been involved in a variety of clubs such as Isaac and HRSA, and obviously BAS. So as VP Events for BAS this year, I was responsible for overseeing a lot of BAS's major programs and events such as BAS Frosh, BMP, and BAS Banquet. Although I've only been in BAS for this past year, I feel like my role specifically gave me a lot of knowledge on the organization itself. Through this role, I was able to learn the ins and outs of the organization while also developing my leadership and team management abilities and expanding my network amongst the students. Because of these things, I think now it's time for me to take the next step. First as a Froshie, as a mentee, a mentor, and as VP Events, I was really able to experience firsthand what BAS offers to the students and how it can be really impactful. And as president, my goal is to really keep that momentum going and continue to find new ways to work with our students. Just to highlight my platform, I want to focus on 3 things for this year. First, I really want to work on adding more value-adding opportunities for students. Right now, BAS has really developed our events to a point where they can run fairly smoothly with really high success. So now I want to change that focus into how we can further expand our reach as BAS. For example, I was taking a look at our different positions and events, and I noticed that if you add up the number of students that are involved in BAS, the number of people that can attend our events, we only represent maybe 15% of the 3,800 students that we represent at BD. So yeah, I want to work with the Executive Council and the year representatives to brainstorm new ideas that may be initiated either this year or for years to come. Next, I also want to work on collaborating with the other clubs. I noticed that there's a really diverse group of individuals with a lot of different skills that other clubs can really benefit from. By working with the BD presidents, I want to come up with new ways to create a collaborative culture either through hosting workshops together, hosting different events, and our retreats. And finally, one thing that I want to focus on is really defining what BAS is as an organization. So we recently had become an SFU over the past year, and because of that, I think it's really important to continue formalizing BAS's operations and help BAS become internally stronger. This includes revising the bylaws or talking to the Board of Advisors about how we can further define how we really represent the students, like how can we really cater to their needs. These are the kind of things that I want to focus on in my year. I guess to sum up my platform, I want to add more opportunities for students, create a collaborative culture, and really define what BAS is as an organization. Thank you for coming today, and I really hope I'm able to represent you as your next BAS president.
So hi everyone, my name is Katie. I'm a 4th year HR student and also concentrating in marketing. A lot of you might know me because I actually ran for BAS VP HR a year ago, so in 2014, 2015. And one of the biggest questions I'm getting when I was doing my campaign and talking to different students was, why am I running again? I think that might be going on in your head right now. And to address that, there's kind of 3 main reasons why I'm running again. The first reason is because I really love BAS and I really believe in what it does for students. I talk to so many students, and even myself, there's so much that BAS does within their 1st to 4th year, or even after, by the time they graduate. A lot of the questions that you get when people graduate, or sorry, let me rephrase that. One of the questions that some of the BD videos ask our graduates is, what is one of the most impactful things that you've done in your undergraduate career? And a lot of them say things that are affiliated to BAS, whether that's BAS Frosh, BAS Mentorship Program, or even attending BAS Banquet. You can really see that BAS integrates a lot of our activities within our BAS business students' undergraduate career. And I really believe in that, and I really vouch for, I guess, that kind of experience. The second reason is because I really believe that the HR portfolio has a lot of opportunity to grow. Not many people know this, but the HR portfolio has actually only existed for 5 years. So the year that I ran for BAS VP HR was the 3rd year, and now we're entering our 5th year. And although it's existed for 5 years, there's still a lot of opportunities for growth. We don't have too much documentation or processes or even procedures in the BAS HR portfolio, and I really think that there's a lot of opportunities to grow in that. And the last reason why I'm running again is because I really love working with different students. I feel like there's a lot to gain, whether you're a coordinator or a VP or even the president or even a first and second year representative. I feel like everyone brings different experiences, and I really love working with different people. So my platform is really based on two main points. The first one is to really develop long-term plans or procedures or even written things for BAS HR. Right now, a lot of the procedures that we go through are really verbally said or verbally passed on every year, and that's a really big issue because it doesn't ensure consistency. So we might be hiring for one thing in 1 year, but not the next year. So I really want to develop written procedures that will allow BAS HR to be successful in the long run. Another issue within BAS is kind of the succession and training procedure and onboarding procedure. Right now, we don't really have a lot of succession planning or even onboarding for our new executive team. So every year it's kind of, you do a meeting or two and then that's really it. So I really want to set up long-term plans for that kind of succession planning. And my second platform is really developing or strengthening what we have right now. So we have procedures for recruitment, onboarding, training, exit interviews, but none of that was really, I feel like every year we do those procedures, but we never really find ways to improve it. And I think after my co-op term at a mobile games company doing HR, I really learned what it's like in a real organization. I want to be able to develop that in BAS. So yeah, that's really my platform. And thank you guys for coming, and let me know if you have any questions about my platform later on.
Hi, I'm Paul Richard. So I'm running for first and second year representative, and although I'm very new here in BD, I feel like part of the community already because I've been part of BAS Frosh and the BAS mentorship program. I've learned a lot from my mentor Anthony Sue, who's very involved in BAS, and he's taught me a lot about what BAS has done and how I could help improve it. And I'd like to just be part of that and be part of what made my experience in BAS Frosh, BAS mentorship, such a great experience for me, and what I bring, although I haven't been involved in any clubs thus far at BD. I'm currently working as a Taekwondo instructor, so I work with kids a lot, so I know what it's like to be put into a leadership role, although not with people my age generally. It's younger kids. In high school I was very involved with multiple clubs such as environmental group, yearbook club. I also was I was the treasurer at the environmental club. So I've been very involved in the past, and I'd like to be part of that in BD and help create change for the first and second years. And basically my platform, I'd like to create more opportunities for first and second years to just be part of that community, BD community, and be part of BAS, or BD. Because like I said, I've been very involved in the BAS Frosh, BAS mentorship program, and all the opportunities I've got, and I took full advantage of, and I'd like to create more opportunities for people like me that are incoming or already here to feel part of the community as well. I'd also like to, when I was talking to a lot of students, and I talked to even some older students with my mentor Anthony, I found that a lot of people don't actually know face-to-face the executive council. They couldn't tell me the names of them, so I'd really like to ensure that the people know who's representing them and what they can do. They can give feedback. That's one thing. I'd like to create an event in which they can give feedback to the executive team. And I also just like to create that community feeling, like I said. I'd just like to create that community feeling and make sure that everyone knows who they're being represented by. Thank you.
The debate portion of our event. The first questions will be asked towards the executive council, so Katie and Deborah. The first question will be a platform question. So what's going to happen is I'll ask one question and both Deborah. So Deborah will answer first and then Katie. And then for the second question, Katie will answer first and then Deborah. So the first question is, what immediate actions will you take if you were to be elected for your term in May?
She goes first.
So Deborah goes first.
I think the first action I would take is really look at BAS as a whole and look at the different programs, events, positions that we have, and see like, are these positions adding value, and if not, how can we add more value to that? And also, are there places that there might be a gap missing, or we can add something and really improve upon what we've already built? Because I feel like BAS does have really strong programs and events and opportunities for students, but obviously it can always be improved upon. So I think I want to really take the time in the beginning of my term to really look at these different things and see how we can better change them.
Katie?
So if you've been an executive council member, you really know that your term doesn't start in May. It actually starts way before that. So if you're asking about immediate actions, I think the first one on the top of my head would be to release applications for Frosh Chair. Frosh happens every September, and if we don't release it soon, they're not going to have enough time to plan. So that's definitely my first plan. The second one is to kind of talk with the executive team about how we can re-strategize about how we hire coordinators and what their roles are, because one of the issues with BAS is that our coordinators do really great within their role, but they kind of act like silos in the sense that there's not too much cross-communication between portfolios. So it's talking with the executive team about how we can mitigate that, whether it's implementing student life initiatives that our entire team does, or doing things like more meetings or more team bonding events so that we can have that stronger culture is another thing that's really on the top priority for me. So getting those coordinators hired by, I would say, April would be another top priority. And in May, I'm also looking into releasing applications for BMP and also Pathways. So there's a lot of recruitment initiatives that I'm really looking into. In terms of HR specific, I think I would be doing what I'm saying in terms of bettering the onboarding experience when I start. I think that's one of the things that I can work on my own time and with my coordinators. But the hiring process definitely needs to happen right away. And yeah.
And the second question, so Katie first.
Sure.
How does being involved with BAS tie in with your personal goals?
Good question. So I'm an HR, I'm concentrating in HR, so it definitely ties into my personal goals and also career goals. I think throughout my past term working in the VPHR role and also working with different VPs, I've actually learned a lot about teamwork and how to handle different team personalities, how to handle conflicts between team members. And I feel like personally that's something that's really important to me, because when you go out of university, a lot of what you do is team-based. So I think working in this role and in this capacity, I'm able to work with more different people and learn from them, and that's definitely one of my personal goals. And I think because I really believe in the value of BAS and what we do, another personal goal of mine is really to see BAS be sustainable long term. Every year we do things year by year and take it step by step, but I really want to see BAS be in a position to do more and better stuff in years to come.
For me, personally, I'm also the same as Katie, as I want to go into HR, so being president is a lot of team management, like she said. There's a lot of conflicts that you'll have to deal with, and I think for me, I'm just trying to gain that experience in dealing with a lot of different people that you may not necessarily have worked with otherwise, because that's the kind of thing that you'll interact with in the workplace. You won't always know people that you're going to work with. You might not like them, but you gotta have to figure out how to manage that situation. And for me, BAS has given me so much through my first year as a Froshie, as a mentor. Like, I've gained so many different valuable skills just like from talking to my mentor, being a mentor, and I think part of me really wants to give back to BAS, and I want to be able to leave and graduate knowing that I was able to make that difference, like the same kind of difference that happened to me in my first year, my second year, and how I was able to grow because of it. Furthermore, I think that being president, you also get to interact with a lot of different people, and a personal goal of mine is just to be able to talk to a lot of different people, be more comfortable, like talking to professionals or externals. This is something that when I was in my first year, I was super shy, and I didn't think I would ever be able to talk to anyone, and I feel like even as my role as VP Events now, I've really improved on that, and that's something that I want to continue improving in the future.
Okay, and your last platform question is, how do you plan on resolving any significant risks and weaknesses you have identified in your SWOT analysis in your application?
Well, one of the major weaknesses that I found in BAS is that it's a very work-oriented culture. It's like it's a lot of like getting everything done, not so much like a team environment. And that's something that I really want to work on because I don't want it to just be like, oh, we come here to do work. I want people to have a really good experience in BAS and remember their experience in BAS. And that's something that I would want to work with Katie on, like how we can better manage our coordinators and our organizing committees so they better interact with each other. And like Katie mentioned, it's a lot of silo work and finding new ways that they can work together and collaborate and create an overall better environment for BAS.
Let's see. I agree with what Deborah said in terms of the weakness of BAS being silos, but I think another weakness that I identified in my SWOT analysis was the financial long-term sustainability of BAS. So in terms of resolving that, I feel like it's a long-term plan. You can't really do it within 1 year. And I feel like a lot of issues within BAS you can't really solve, or they're not immediate quick fixes. So I think it's just having the conversation with the executive team to find out what are our options and seeing what the most applicable one would be for BAS. And for example, the financial one is what are some things that we can do to have long-term financial sustainability for BAS, because right now we rely a lot on our corporate sponsors, and we really appreciate the corporate sponsors that always partner with us. But if it's only something that happens year by year, it's not really something that's really good for BAS long-term. So it's really having that conversation with the BAS executive team to see what we want to do with that and what strategies we want to approach with that.
So I'll pass it on to Mark for the role-specific questions for our executive council.
Okay, and I'll start with asking the potential candidates some questions, and so you can answer the question whenever you're ready. The first question is, who do you consider to be the main stakeholders, and what are the plans to engage them?
Well, I think BAS has a variety of stakeholders, which includes like our board of advisors, obviously our students, the faculty, our sponsors, and one that's really big to us is the Student Engagement Office. And I think over the past few years, we've really developed strong relationships with them in terms of like being able to communicate with them effectively and letting them know, this is what we're doing. This is how, for example, like with our board of advisors, they really helped us with like our policies, and like it's important to show them that this is the work that you helped us with and this is how we're using it. Like their efforts aren't going to waste, and I think that's something that's really important, is like these people are taking time out of their day to help us out, and I think that BAS has really benefited because of that. And I want to continue maintaining those relationships and continuing to show them that we really appreciate their support, and that we can comfortably like go to them for different things, and also show that we aren't just wasting their time or anything. And
And the second question is, how would you define success during your term if you're elected as a BAS president? You can ask for clarification or repetition in English.
Success in like
Or just in your own terms.
any terms?
Yeah, it's pretty open-ended question.
I think one way I would kind of define success in my term is if we're able to keep everything that we've done before sustainable. Like, we don't want our programs to be any less than they are this year or they were previous years, because we always want to have BAS continue to improve. And also, in a sense, for like financially, like Katie mentioned, like figuring out ways that BAS can be sustainable for years to come, because as president, you really have to see like it's not just this year, what about the year after that and the year after that. And also, I think I would also define it as success is seeing, like, I guess the opportunities that students go into afterwards. Like, are we able to inspire students to want to continue to be involved with the BD community? Are events like Frosh, are they making a difference for our students? And I think that's really what we're here for, is to not only just represent our students, but also to give them a really good experience during their undergraduate careers. So I think that's a really important measure of success to consider. And finally, I think, like I mentioned in my platform, I want to figure out like the next steps now that we are in FSU, like what we can do next. And I think defining success in that aspect would be taking the time to really look at the different options that we have in terms of where to go forward from there, and being able to add to that and not just, you know, celebrate that we're in FSU, but like now what kind of thing.
What is the biggest change you would bring to BAS, if any? And please discuss why you think this change would be valuable to all BD students. So losing interest in sponsorship, as you previously mentioned. Sorry.
Oh, wait, I didn't mention that.
No, you didn't mention that? So you don't think that external companies are losing interest in?
I do think that is a concern, for
Okay.
sure. So you can ask the question.
Okay, so assuming that as the outgoing VP of events, can you identify any causes or reasons to this loss of interest?
I think specifically into like for BAS, for example, a lot of our sponsorship comes through BAS Banquet, and I think reasons why they might be losing interest is like the students that are getting involved, like by attending the event, whereas like the sponsors aren't particularly happy with the types of students that they're meeting. Like they're looking for specific students and concentrations, and I know that that's something that we've been struggling to figure out, is like how to get the right students there, and I think that's something that we need to revisit, is like how do we promote Banquet? How do we encourage students to come to this event, like promote the value that they get out of it? Because a lot of times they're like, oh, I'm in this concentration, you don't really have any companies for this. Like looking at ways that we can still sell that event to them and still gain their interest, because I think a lot of companies aren't just looking for, like for example, an accounting firm isn't just looking for accounting students. Like this learning how to sell the event to students and providing the companies with better, I guess, batch of students that they're looking for, because that is really what BAS Banquet kind of promotes for the companies.
And that's it for the presidential candidate, and now we'll move on to the VP of Human Resource, so Katie. How BAS team members are receiving the necessary support and resources to fulfill their responsibilities?
Good question. I think in terms of support, I mean, there's a lot of different BAS members. There's our coordinators, there's our OC, and obviously there's our VPs. In terms of support, obviously the president would have to support the VPs, but I think it's also really important in the beginning of our term to talk about what our goal or vision is as a team, and also at what point can we tolerate stress or not tolerate stress, and how to talk to each other about it, because I think as the year goes on, it only gets more complicated, so it's important to have good communication channels. In terms of supporting the rest of our team, in terms of coordinators, the VPs are the main responsibility of have the main responsibility of supporting our coordinators. And in previous years, if there's any issues with that, or if there's any communication issues, or if the coordinators have any issues in general, the BAS VP HR and also the HR coordinators are usually doing check-ins with them, so we're able to identify that right away. And in terms of our OC members, our VP internal is usually the one that supports that portfolio. But in terms of supporting, the HR team also does check-ins with them. So the HR team really just supports everyone in terms of checking in, seeing how they're doing. But in the beginning of the year, I always like to make sure that the teams know that if they have any issues, whether it's something personal or team related or event related, that they can always come to the HR team or even the president about it. So supporting in the sense that we're there checking in, but also supporting in the sense that if they have any issues, they know to come to us.
I believe Deborah, in her application, the SWOT analysis identified that poor overall team culture and lack of cross-functional collaboration is one of BAS's biggest weaknesses. How do you plan on addressing that issue?
So I've actually given that a lot of thought recently, and an idea that I came up with was having all of the coordinators do some sort of activity together, whether it's once a semester or twice a semester. Maybe we assign different coordinators to do a specific student life event, which will also help our student life portfolio. And having, like, splitting up the coordinators, maybe like in teams of 4 or 5, to come up with an event each semester so they can have the opportunity to work with each other, but also have the opportunity to do something outside of the portfolios that's not that doesn't require too much involvement is really important. And I think the main reason why we have that problem is because of how our teams are structured. I don't feel like it's a thing that we can fix within a year, but I think definitely having opportunity for coordinators to be to see each other more, or to interact with each other more is really important. I think maybe something I was considering was hosting monthly or bi-monthly Bath team events, whether that's a big meeting and we do icebreakers and talk about what each other is doing, or just going out for team building activities is also really important. We've done it in the past, but we've never done it consistently throughout the term. And I find that maybe if we implement it consistently, then people will look forward to it, they'll know it's going to happen, and it creates an opportunity for people to mingle with each other.
What was the biggest challenge you faced as the VP of HR in the previous term, 2014-15, and how did you overcome it?
I would say within my term, I had a lot of expectations going in terms of what I wanted the HR portfolio to be. But throughout my term, I kind of had to redirect my efforts toward conflict management and supporting our teams more. There were some issues in terms of how the teams were communicating, and I had to kind of provide a lot more support in that area, a lot more than what I expected it to be. So in terms of issue, I would say it's just not being able to do what I envisioned what I wanted to do, but I feel like at the end of the day, all of our events ran really smoothly, and I don't regret doing that at all. But in terms of this year, I think I want to manage my time better, so putting a lot more tasks to my coordinators and trusting them a lot more than I did last year, and giving them bigger tasks and more freedom is something that I really want to do, so that they really know what it's like to kind of take more responsibility, and that way I can also put my efforts into supporting them and also supporting me and keeping an eye on BAS in general.
So the last question is regarding your application. You have identified called weak training and onboarding procedures as one of BAS's weaknesses. If you're elected to VP of HR, how do you plan on improving or addressing the issue?
So in the term that I was VP HR, we did the first big onboarding session where we taught everyone what how to pitch BAS and what every portfolio did. We also had a bit of icebreaker activities. But I think that can be turned into a lot more. I think it's not only just one onboarding session, but it's also having portfolio onboarding sessions. So sitting down with each portfolio and really having maybe the past VP there to talk about what it's like to be in the portfolio and what the importance of the portfolio is another thing that I really think would be valuable. In terms of onboarding, I find that there's a lot of excitement when a lot of our coordinators start, but throughout the term it kind of goes down. So I think in terms of onboarding, it's not just looking at one single event, but how we can do that better throughout the term, whether that's checking in or having different training things or different training courses planned for our coordinators, so that they don't just learn everything in the beginning of their term and then just apply it throughout the term, and looking at how we can maybe separate the training into one big training in the beginning, but also smaller training throughout the term, so that it keeps them excited and they feel like they're learning new things and hopefully want to continue and pass the year after.
Yep, thank you, and also thank you, Deborah. So this concludes the role-specific questions for the Executive Council.
The platform questions for our first and second year representative candidate, Paul. What do you identify as the priorities of the students in your year of study?
Like I said before, I thought the priorities would just be feeling part of a community. Coming from the transition from high school to university is a big one. So being able to take advantage of opportunities that BAS is providing and other clubs provide would be the greatest thing that first and second years would, that I think first and second years need to take advantage of, just to feel part of that community feeling in BD, because there really is no feeling like that feeling from what I've experienced in my experience so far. I really feel that just being part of something that's bigger than just yourself is the most important thing so far.
So moving on to the role-specific questions, what is your approach to connecting with students in your year to best represent them?
To connect with students, I'd like to go out and just have my face seen, be known among first and second years, go out, having an email, phone provided, so that if people ever have any questions, they can contact me, anything like that. Just go out, be known, just like I want the executive team. I'd like the executive team to be known, because this, like Katie and Deborah said, they're really work-oriented, and people sometimes can't feel like they can approach you. I want to feel, I want people to have more of that feeling that they can approach me and the executive team, and I'd like to just be able to open up to the students in my first, second year.
And what are 3 concerns that students in your years would have?
One concern, like I said, is not feeling part of that community feeling. You jump in to the university experience and you're just not a part of anything. You don't feel like you can connect with anyone. That's really what I'd like to improve. So just feeling like you're part of that community, feeling. Another thing I would say, although it may not be a part of BAS so much, is just feeling stressed out with schoolwork, feeling stressed about school in general, and I'd like to be able to maybe provide opportunities to just de-stress. Just like in the BAS mentorship program, they have the midterm relief, something like that for all students who are in first, second year, creating opportunities for them just to relax maybe for a second, just take a breather. Something just to provide a relief. And one more thing would being engaged in BD too. Being engaged and just having opportunities to get involved in that BD, not just as a student, but as a part of a team. Like Deborah and Katie said, being part of a team is really what goes on after your undergraduate career. You go on to be a part of teams. Teams are all in life, and I just want to be able to provide opportunities, maybe let people have the opportunity to become part of teams and feel more, not just as a student, but as part of a team in a club, something like that.
And how will you allocate your attention to the different needs of the student body?
Could you repeat the question?
How would you allocate your attention to the different needs of the student body?
Like I said too, I'd like to be engaged with the people, just being able to give the opportunity to be heard and seen, make sure everyone can know our team, the board of advisors, the executive team, making sure I'm engaged in what I know what's happening, and I can provide recognition for the students and obviously the sponsors, the student engagement office, like they said, are major stakeholders, making sure they're known, and I'm just involved in the community, the BD community.
And do you have any perceived weaknesses relevant to this role? If so, how do you plan on overcoming them?
A weakness I'd say I have personally is I have no experience thus far in any role. I've never been in a club in the BD, so I'd like to just take the next step, be able to talk with people that have been involved, like Katie, Deborah, people that have experience in fields in Bass, and I'd like to be able to take criticism from the students and executive team, board of advisors, to be able to better myself in communicating and growing, not only as a representative, but as a person.
So like you said before, you mentioned being engaged and being part of a community as a big part of first and second year's university life. And a major problem in Bass is that the amount of student involvement is pretty low. What are your plans to improve this?
I'd like to provide more opportunities personally. Like I said, there's Bass Frosh that I was part of, and the Bass Mentorship Program, but I felt like there's somewhat of a lull in between. There's nothing that people feel like they can get involved in. So just being able to provide more opportunities for people to feel like they can become a part of something bigger, they can do something, and I'd like Bass to provide that opportunity, or the clubs that are involved with Bass, to provide opportunities so that students can feel like they can get engaged and they have the opportunity to become a part of that, the BD community.
Okay, thank you, Paul. And that concludes our debate section.
Ian Frosh, and try to get more students involved, but your role is first and second year rep. These programs are notoriously targeted towards first year students. As you mentioned, you're a participant in both as a first year student. You went through Frosh, you went through BNP, that's a great way to get students involved. But in terms of getting those second years involved who weren't necessarily in those programs or different things like that, what do you plan on doing to target the second years as part of your role?
To target the second years, through talking with my mentor Anthony, I know he's been a great part of Bass, and he's had the opportunities. So I'd like to just give the opportunities to the second years, not only the first years, obviously, like I mentioned, but provide opportunities, because I've looked into programs and I haven't seen much in the way of second years. So it's mostly the second years I would like to create that recognition and make sure they're part of it too. It's not just the first years transitioning, but the second years to become part and to grow upon that. So providing more opportunities for second years so that they can be a part of it.
Could you give me an example?
Like I said, the relief I'd like to have for second years and first years, but second years specifically, so they can come and feel part of Bass. They can feel a part of the community. I'd like more people to get involved, especially the second year, so that they're not only left out. So they're not left out of this feeling.
Okay, this is for Paul. You said that you wanted to be more so known around campus as a first and second year rep. What strategies do you have to do so?
Go out and network with the students. I'd like to go around and just go introduce myself personally, providing that phone number, email, so that people can connect with me if they'd like to meet up. Just talk about platform, any concerns, so that people can feel like they can approach me. I just like to be go out, be known personally, and if they'd like to contact me personally, they would always have the opportunity to do so.
This one's for Deborah. You mentioned in your application that you are seeking for a co-op term in the summer, seeking to be working in the summer. That being said, a considerable amount of planning goes on in the summer with regards to Frosh, BMP, even banquet planning gets started then. Do you think that's going to be an issue?
To me personally, I don't think that would be an issue. I can see why for a lot of people they prefer not to be on co-op when they're doing positioning clubs. But to me, if you're really passionate about something, you'll make the time to do it. Like this year, I spent a lot of time doing BAS because I really enjoyed my experience in BAS. So even if I was on a co-op, I would try to work my schedule around that, you know, have meetings in the evenings or have phone calls with specific people if I need to know like what's going on. But yes, so like I said, I don't think it's an issue if I was on co-op in the summer because I've really thought about that and thought about ways that I could really deal with that. And I don't, yeah.
But that being said, you had mentioned that faculty and the student engagement office are key stakeholders. Obviously, if you're on co-op and you're busy and you're working, say, a regular 9 to 5, if you need to meet with them, how are you going to make that work?
Well, I guess particularly with the student engagement office, we've been really fortunate enough that they've been really accommodating to us. Like we haven't, like if we needed to meet with it in the evening, they've never really had an issue with that. And if there was, for example, like a really big thing coming up that would require me to be on campus during the day, that's something that I would plan for. Like I wouldn't all of a sudden just, you know, take the day off and come on campus. These are things that I will make sure that I can foresee these things happening before something like that happens.
I also have a question for Deborah. I was wondering, as president, what do you think you can do to unite the culture both within BAS and within BD? So whether it's as president or as an individual, what do you think you can bring?
As an individual, I think it starts for myself, like really showing that I'm passionate about it and really share that passion with the students because obviously, like if, for example, like if I wasn't engaged with it, if I didn't want to be there, why would anyone else want to be there? I think that's where the culture really starts from. Like Katie mentioned, a lot of the support for the coordinators comes from the executive team. So I think looking for a team that really understands that and is really interested in being the kind of person that is interested in dedicating their time to BAS and willing to share their experiences and also provide support for the members.
I have another question for Paul this time. So, what are 3 qualities or traits you wish to gain from the position of first and second year representative?
I'd like to be able to